just gone like that. And so I do feel I would like to pursue it and hope to get a conclusion one way or the other.
Jill is one of 90 investors who've lost £17 million. A criminal case has begun, but Jill is also taking civil action to get her money back.
I'm a working person. I've just got a sort of small-scale life, and frankly, that amount of money, especially if it had grown over the 10 years, would have made a terrific difference to my retirement fund. I think it's very sad that I was supposed to sort of shrug my shoulders and forget about it.
The current fraud case involving Cantrade Bank has sent shockwaves beyond the island. Controversy over a new law and allegations of potential conflicts of interest have also rocked this tax haven. Now questions are being asked about Jersey's ability to regulate its finance industry, so vital to the island's economy. Is Jersey strong enough to weather the storm? Jersey's development as one of the world's top offshore finance centres began in the 1960s. Now the island has £200 billion in bank deposits. It's a far cry from the days when the Jersey Cow and the Jersey Royal ruled the local economy. Jersey is part of the British Isles, but not part of the United Kingdom, which means its government, the states, can create its own laws. Successive states have worked hard to build a solid reputation for the island as an offshore finance centre. Members not only make the laws, they also enforce them. Powerful committees regulate the main industries, and finance is the most important of all. Jersey has developed the perfect environment for a thriving finance industry: low tax, political stability and confidentiality. Official figures say 54% of Jersey's total wealth is generated by the money business. The man in charge is the president of the Finance and Economics Committee, Senator Pierre Horsfall, effectively Jersey's Chancellor of the Exchequer.
It represents well over half our annual business conducted in the island. It provides jobs for school leavers. We have no youth unemployment. It provides training, and overall its contribution to the island's economy, which means schools and hospitals and the like, is very substantial. And I think most people in the island recognize that it is extremely important.
Important it may be, but it's also fragile, and headlines about the Cantrade fraud case in the Wall Street Journal have sent tremors through the financial world. In court last week, foreign exchange dealer Robert Young was charged with 29 counts of fraud, concealing information and making misleading statements between 1988 and 1993. Alfred Williams, an accountant with Touche Ross, who audited Mr. Young's books, faces 21 charges of fraud. A senior manager at Cantrade Bank, Peter Stoneman, not pictured here, faces 19 charges of fraud. And the bank itself has also been charged with 12 offences in connection with the alleged fraud. Investors like Jill Bouchard are now taking civil action against the bank and the accountants to get their money back. What makes this case politically intriguing is the involvement of the island's Finance and Economics Committee. Part of their job is to regulate the finance industry. Back in 1994, investors who'd lost their money asked the committee to investigate and suspend Bank Cantrade. After advice from the island's Attorney General, who said that request was too far-reaching, the committee said no. It subsequently emerged that the president of the Finance and Economics Committee, Senator Pierre Horsfall, had been a paid director of Cantrade Bank for 3 years, to the end of 1990. Do you regret having taken the directorship of the Bank of Cantrade?
The answer to that is no, because I learned quite a lot. To be a director for a period of time of a bank which is of major Swiss parentage, I learned quite a lot at the time, so no, I don't regret taking that directorship. And in particular, at the time I was a director, none of the matters that are currently in argument ever appeared before the board. I had no knowledge of them prior to my resignation from the board.
I've been really surprised that, well, shocked really, that the regulators here, the Finance and Economics Committee and those people concerned with the finance industry of the island, refused to do anything about it. If things need to be put right, it should be admitted that that there is something wrong, and attempts should be made to bring in the regulations that will govern the finance industry safely and securely.
In Jersey's recent elections, Senator Horsfall topped the poll in every parish. It was a clear vote of confidence from the electorate, apparently unconcerned that the man whose job it is to regulate the finance industry is still a paid director of another bank, ANZ Grindlays.
And 61. So it's Pierre Horsfall, Corrie Stein, Len Norman.
If we create a situation in which politicians, by the fear of being tainted with conflict of interest, are driven out from serious involvement at a senior level in business affairs, so they can't be directors of serious active companies, we will all suffer. We will have less good politicians who know less about the business world and live more in a sort of unreal hot air world of the State's chamber only. And that would be a loss to us all.
It is impossible to imagine a finance committee without some people, at least on it, who understand some of the background of the very heavy decisions that they have to make. And it is essential to have a certain amount of expertise on it. I think anybody in the finance industry in Jersey would recognize that fact. And so long as the interest is known and is declared, there is nothing wrong with that. The industry benefits and the island's benefits of having people on the regulatory function who have knowledge of what is going on.
But younger politicians like Senator Stuart Sivray are beginning to question these potential conflicts of interest. In 1994, one of the island's security firms, Securicor, won the contract to provide the first response to burglar alarms, a job previously done by the police. The chairman of Securicor is Senator Dick Shenton. He was also a member of the Defence Committee that awarded the contract. When the potential conflict was pointed out last year, he resigned from the Defence Committee.
They are continuing quite blithely the traditional practices of the island's political culture, which traditionally have involved a massive overlap between their political activities and their commercial activities. It has gone on for decades, and it's only in recent years that we've begun to start challenging that process. Many of them, for cultural reasons, will not really understand, perhaps, that they've actually done anything wrong by having the sort of overlap of commercial and political activities.
But Senator Sivray is now unable to voice those criticisms inside the States. Earlier this year, he made allegations of a conflict of interest over the introduction of a new law. He refused to withdraw those allegations and has become the first senator in Jersey's political history to be expelled from the States. The law in question is a financial one. It's designed to put a limit on the amount of money people can claim from an accountancy firm if it's proved to be negligent. What that means is if a group of investors loses £100 million and their accountant is found to be in some way responsible, they can only claim back £5 million and the assets of the individual accountant. Some have criticised the ethics of this limited liability partnership law, but the main concern was the way it was introduced. This is how it happened. One of the biggest UK accountancy firms approached a law firm in Jersey, Moron de Fer and Jeune, with their draft of the new law. In November last year, it went to the island's Policy and Resources Committee to see if it could be introduced quickly. The president of that committee is Senator Red Jeune. He's also a consultant with Moron de Fer and Jeune. The committee accepted the law, and Senator Jeune later spoke in favour of it. In a States debate, Senator Sivray claimed this was a conflict of interest. However, in a statement to the House, Senator Jeune denied he knew about the link. He said, "Although I had heard that Moron de Fer and Jeune were part of a large team of professionals looking into this matter, I was not aware of their role, nor that they were responsible for the initiating letter to the Finance and Economics Committee acting for their clients." Do you believe that Senator Jeune had no knowledge at all of a law firm of which he is a consultant was helping Pricewaterhouse to draft this law?
I'm absolutely certain, because it is a very large law firm. I'm not sure how many people they employ, but it's 200 and something. It's a very large law firm. It has international business worldwide, and Senator Jeune, I know, has been retired for 10 years. I know he doesn't attend partnership meetings and the like, and though his honorary title is a consultant, he's the only consultant I know who's never been consulted. So I would find it surprising if he knew a fraction of the work that company is engaged in as a retired partner.
Do you think there's a worry or a concern that it could be perceived as a potential conflict of interest?
I don't think in the minds of a reasonable person it could be.
3 weeks after the law was passed, Senator Sivray was expelled from the States. Yet enough ill feeling had been generated to prompt the setting up of an internal inquiry into whether the law had been pushed through with undue speed. The accountancy firm involved had provided advice and money to help construct the law quickly.
How a major company can buy its own laws in a jurisdiction of its choice is simply beyond me. I mean, that is perhaps the sort of activity one would expect of a banana republic somewhere, but not of a respectable modern democratic society. Jersey has been used by companies like Pricewaterhouse. There is indeed that danger that the island becomes run utterly to the whims and wishes of the finance industry, because we are now so dependent upon that industry.
By no means was this a question of Pricewaterhouse coming to us and saying, we want the law to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 exactly as we want it. It was a question of Pricewaterhouse and others advising them, saying to us, if you structure it in this way, this will achieve the legal results. And it was then for us
that they want.
That they wanted, yes. In other words, a partnership with limited liability. To structure that is a bit complicated. And so by structuring it in that way, we could achieve what they wanted. And then it was for us to say, well, now wait a minute, having achieved that, what safeguards do we need for the other parties?
Many, however, feel the law itself is morally questionable. David Bickford is a former legal advisor to MI5 and MI6 and now advises nations on financial policy. He's one of a chorus of disapproving voices who feel the law does nothing to enhance Jersey's reputation.
It's allowing partnerships to do more business, get more assets, and yet say to the general public who's dealing with them, when you deal with us, although we're professionals and we're giving you a professional service, we don't have to pay you what you're due if we get it wrong. It is not really acceptable in the general way of proper commercial activity.
To my understanding, LLP legislation is, in a sense, a moral evasion of responsibility, because it's dumping offshore your responsibility to your clients onshore. I'm not too clear what would happen if a major accountancy practice had a problem in an audit, for example, and then said, but we're an LLP in Jersey. I don't know where the client would be left. It means the partners are protected, but I'm not sure about the clients. And in other areas of life in the West, if you're a consumer and you buy something electronic and you get electrocuted from it, then your family could sue the manufacturer. If you have a duff audit, then, and that maybe leaves your company in dire straits, where is your redress to the law?
Dr. Mark Hampton is a Jerseyman. He spent 6 years studying offshore finance centres and has specialised in his home island. He's one of the few published academics in the offshore field.
I think it sends a very bad signal to the world at large that Jersey is in effect a legislature for hire, that the states of Jersey rushed with unseemly haste to push this piece of legislation through. The fact that it was privately paid for to be drafted to the cost, I understand, of about £1 million, raises some very interesting ethical questions, and I think it sends a very wrong message that Jersey is a little bit too keen to get into bed with major world bank and financial players.
It's a keenness that's also concerned the United Kingdom government. Worried that large firms will flee the city for the protection Jersey is offering, last week the government announced plans to bring in a similar law to Britain.
If it does, firms thinking of taking their business to Jersey may not go. The new law has created a good deal of bad publicity for the island and has prompted many to take a deeper look at the way the island regulates its finance industry. There are now doubts being voiced about Jersey's ability to tackle a growing threat: money laundering by international criminals. New York, home to Wall Street and one of the most influential money markets in the world. Investigators here are becoming increasingly worried about the way offshore finance centres like Jersey are being used to launder the proceeds of organised crime.
What we do is to try to gather the evidence, to try to follow the money. And of course that's where the Channel Islands become important, because they make it very difficult to gather evidence. And even though, I mean, we're hopeful of cooperation from them now, but even if they do cooperate, it may take a year. By the time we get the information, I mean, the horse is not only stolen, the barn is locked and maybe burned down.
Money laundering is a complicated business. The proceeds of criminal activities are channeled through companies with accounts in offshore centres around the world. Once the money has passed through several banks, the trail is so tangled it can take years to sort out. The key to the whole process is bank secrecy. At 73, Robert Morgenthau is a respected veteran in the fight against this kind of crime. He's critical of the confidentiality that Jersey offers.
They're there to do an international business, and they got to be there for a reason. And the reason they're there is that their depositors are protected by bank secrecy. In Jersey, that's what they're selling. And I think because it's linked with the British government, that gives them an aura of reliability that they might not have someplace else. When you try to find the records of a company incorporated in Jersey or an account in a bank there, you certainly don't get it at all, or maybe it takes a year or two, but I mean, so far we've had no luck in getting any records out of Jersey.
I'm surprised when I hear that said, because I know that we help many foreign jurisdictions through the Attorney General's office. We help many foreign jurisdictions in their inquiries where there are crimes having been committed, and I have personally seen several letters from US authorities thanking the island profusely for the large amount of help that the US authorities have received. In terms of banking, we have the same secrecy as you have in the United Kingdom, which really amounts to confidentiality, that your business with your bank is confidential. But we don't have a banking secrecy law as other countries, such as Austria and Switzerland, have. The confidentiality that you have on financial transactions in Jersey can be swept aside for criminal investigation purposes.
Jersey may not have bank secrecy laws, but it does allow another effective form of secrecy in the shape of nominee companies.
For anyone wanting to legitimately hide their money, Jersey, like other offshore finance centres, is an ideal location. For just £2,000, you can buy what's called a nominee company. It's run by people here in the island, but crucially, the system is designed so that no one need ever know whose money is actually behind the company. There are 28,000 of them here in Jersey.
If it's a proper tax avoidance scheme, there's no reason to hide the assets from those countries which recognise that tax avoidance is perfectly legitimate. So the only reason you want to hide assets is to evade tax, which is illegal, or to hide dirty money. Money, for instance, that comes from narcotics trafficking or child pornography or whatever.
American government statistics estimate that $5,000 billion washes through offshore jurisdictions every year, and that 20% of that is so-called dirty money. So how much of the money going through Jersey is dirty?
I think the statistics would probably prove about the same, about 20%. The reason I say that is this, that if you're a criminal laundering dirty money, the object of doing that is to make it clean. Now, what better place to make it clean than through a British dependent territory or a territory that is aligned to the United Kingdom. So yes, if I was a criminal wishing to launder my profits from Colombia or the United States through one of the Caribbean offshore centres, I would aim for Jersey or one of the other European centres to be able to get the kudos to move my money into the London or European money market.
This isn't simply hypothetical. Jersey has been used as an unwitting pawn in a series of fraud cases over the years. These include the collapse of Barlow Klaus, the laundering of money from the Brinks Mat gold robbery, the moving of funds through Jersey during the Guinness Distillers takeover, money from the Iran Gate affair being paid to a Jersey company, and the banking of an estimated $120 million in Jersey by Third World dictator Baby Doc Duvalier. Dr. Mark Hampton says while Jersey may be an innocent party, these cases show the inherent weakness in its system of regulation. He believes the time has come for Jersey to have a serious rethink of the way it controls its finance industry.
If you want to host a major part of the world offshore business, then you've got to be up to speed. It's not good enough to say, well, I'm a local character, I'm well known, I'm a good family man, and I go to the local church. That doesn't cut much ice with international investors in Canada or Australia or the Far East, because they don't know that person from a bar of soap.
I think that the offshore criminals, the criminals who use offshore industry, are now controlling how money runs through the international financial system. It's accepted by the United States, by the G7, that this situation is now out of control. I think Jersey really needs to sit down and think very seriously about their view that they're in control, because that's quite dangerous.
It has been a concern of mine for a number of years that any jurisdiction which has a reputation as good as Jersey's is going to find itself more and more attractive to the criminal element. And I think the need for vigilance is very much there, and the need for sound legislation which is properly implemented as well, not just on the statute book and ignored.
And are you confident then that just as things stand at the moment, you have sufficient legislation to counter that?
I think we have. I think there's always room for improvement. Let's be quite fair about this, and I think much depends as well on resources that are available. But I think that the resources that are available in Jersey are very good and have been directed very wisely thus far. We have taken on some of the world's biggest institutions and insisted that they change their practices. I'm quite convinced that Jersey can hold its head up high in these areas, and I believe that we have the sophistication and the expertise legally and in accountancy areas and in financial business to do this job successfully.
The Jersey authorities are sensitive to anything that could affect investor confidence. They're planning to spend £200,000 on a PR exercise to calm the waters. But ripples are already being felt. Derek Bernard says business has been lost.
My impression is that every single significant financial business in the island has received a huge number of queries as to what on earth is going on in Jersey. Now, that does not necessarily reflect into loss of business. Only a small proportion of that, I would hope, will actually turn into loss of business. And there I have to speculate. I don't know the results, and nor do the bankers. I mean, the fact is that nobody really knows what you've lost, because you didn't get it. So you don't know. The only ones you'll actually know where the business was almost there, and then it was taken away. That's happened in one or two cases. I would guess that it is a significant amount of damage that has been done.
But Jersey may well be under an even greater threat. The United States has said any offshore centre that doesn't cooperate with its investigations will be barred from US money markets. America has had enough of losing billions in tax revenue to secret accounts offshore.
A tax haven destroys legitimate governments. You know, the United States government, the British government should say that we will not let any of our banks do business in bank secrecy jurisdictions. And that would put the Channel Islands out of business pretty quickly.
Back in Jersey, Stuart Sivray now has plenty of time to spend on his job as a cabinet maker. He's facing 3 years out of office, the remainder of his elected term. But he's written to the Home Office, putting his case for reinstatement to the States. The outsider is taking seriously the threats from across the Atlantic. He's now calling for a root and branch inquiry into how Jersey operates.
I think an independent investigation into the island system of government is what we need. We need to have a constitutional review. We desperately need to have an independent judiciary. People may criticize me from within the island for doing and saying these sort of things, but in the long run, Jersey has to face the reality that the Jersey way of doing things is not acceptable to the rest of the world as we go into the 21st century.
Jersey is changing. It's recognised that the money business has expanded rapidly over the last 10 years and is now far more complex. The island is setting up a Financial Services Commission. This will take the responsibility for regulation away from the Finance and Economics Committee. It's something Guernsey's had for 10 years.
I think the record of Jersey is absolutely remarkable. There hasn't been a bank collapse for 25 years. I don't think there's any other jurisdiction can tell you that. And overall, when you consider the amount of business transacted in this island, the lack of financial problems, I would say that we must compare extremely favourably with any other jurisdiction.
But questions remain. Do the authorities really know who's using the island and for what purpose? And could Jersey's vital finance industry survive if an impatient America decides to get tough?